Welcome back, everyone. If you're following the road to the 2015 Nigerian elections on Twitter, you have likely seen tweets and analysis from our following two guests, Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi and Mukhtar Dania, who tweet to thousands daily using the handles at Ogundamisi and at Mr. AD respectively. These two will be joining SaharaTV today in a vibrant face-off, during which they will weigh the merits and challenges of the two front-running candidates, Jonathan Goodluck and Muhammadu Buhari, in the rapidly approaching race. Welcome to the show, Mr. Kayode.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome, Mr. Mukhtar.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So I'll start with you, Mr. Kayode. You are both hugely popular on social media. Mr. Kayode, you have about 91,000 followers on Twitter. What do you think is the impact of social media on these coming elections?
I think it's playing a very important role in the 2015 election, as it's been doing in the national space in the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, gone are the days where private media owners can use their influence to bamboozle Nigerians and spread lies and rumor, and they get away with that. Now, we've taken the power away from the main street from the mainstream to the main street. So if you're spreading bigoted lies about an individual, young people can go on social media, they can check out, they can fact check you, and they can throw the lies back onto you. So gone are those days where you can wake up in the morning and describe a candidate as being a religious bigot, and you will use your paper to spread those lies. Young people are taking the power back into their hands. They're being able to disabuse the minds of those who are swayed by these views. So it's going to have a very great impact on the politics of 2015 and beyond.
Okay, that's great. And I see you are pro-Buhari, yes?
Absolutely. I am a Buharist, but not a blind follower of Buhari, but I strongly believe in Buhari.
Okay, so Buhari clearly has more social media presence now than in 2011. What exactly is this doing for his campaign?
In 2011, let me say that I was one of those very isolated few, in conjunction with quite few others, that supported General Buhari on social media. I mean, it was probably like out of 100, probably you would have almost 85 people following Goodluck Jonathan for quite some reasons, and then a few for Buhari. But let me also say that beyond that, I actually joined in the campaign to have Jonathan get his rights as the legitimate president of the country when the Yaradua cabal were trying to take that right away from him. Mm-hmm. So in 2011, it's quite true that not a lot of Nigerians understood the Buhari message. But in 2015, I think a lot of people have come to realize that they've tested Jonathan, they've trusted him, but he's betrayed that trust. And quite a number of people that are on social media campaigning for Buhari now are people I have never even met, people I don't know, and quite a number of people who actually supported Jonathan in 2011. So most of the debates now is more of let us get Jonathan out, and then let there be a democratic change, a genuine democratic change in Nigeria after 16 years of a one-party dictatorship at the federal level.
That's great. Mr. Mukhtar, I see you smiling, itching to talk. I'll just ask you the same question. What do you think the impact of social media on this election is?
I think it's a testament to President Jonathan that Nigeria enjoys such vibrant freedom. The last time we had freedom of this nature was really in 1983, when Muhammadu Buhari decided to truncate democracy. And after that, what we had was a downward spiral. It's good that it's taken over 30 years for Nigerians to be able to regain their voices. And I think in this election, even though most Nigerians are not on Twitter, the fact is a lot of influencers are. And that's very important because the message we're able to put out there gets spread to people everywhere else. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I also want to thank Kayode for his Freudian slip when he said he's working hard to get Goodluck Jonathan reelected. We know that's what you're thinking, so it's okay for you to state otherwise publicly.
Did you say that, Mr. Kayode? No, I think you misheard that.
Don't correct ideas. Don't tell him you misheard him. This is a character who lives in New York. I can't believe somebody who lives in the land of freedom saying Nigeria should be thankful to Jonathan, quote and unquote, for setting Nigerians free. Let me inform Mr. Ayedi or Mr. Dania, that Nigerians are free because of the struggle and the sweat and the experience in these past years to campaign for our freedom. And that freedom is not a gift bequeathed on the people. Freedom is a right of the people. So to credit Jonathan with allowing Nigerians to speak freely is quite condescending to hundreds of Nigerians, people like Dr. Bekor and some Kuti, the young men and women who fought on the streets of Lagos. And then it is obvious. It is obvious on this program. It is obvious on this program when you actually tried to misquote me. No, I'm going to cool down. Let me just correct you. You actually you're trying to even lie on this program.
Concisely, let everyone get what you're saying. Shouting won't get the point across.
I'm not shouting. I'm just trying to expose.
Okay, we've been given this platform. We've actually been given, both of you have been given this platform to express your own opinions without talking down on anyone. So I'd appreciate Mr. Mukhtar. Let's go back to the question that I asked initially, and I'd like to follow up. So do you think there'll be a huge turnout of young people at the election polls because of the social media presence of these candidates? That's for you, Mr. Dania.
I think the turnout will be adequate. It won't be overwhelming. Historically speaking, most young people don't go out to vote in any democracy. But I think the turnout will probably be equal to what we saw in 2011, maybe a bit slightly higher. And I don't think social media will be the reason for that.
Okay. I see that you are pro-Jonathan, Mr. Mukhtar.
Yes, absolutely.
Why are you, give me your top 3 reasons why you're campaigning for Jonathan.
Sure. One of the main things is I think he's done a great job with Nigeria's economy. He has shepherded the economy really from what wasn't the best situation, where we had gaping deficits, where we had double-digit inflation, where we had GDP growth that wasn't that phenomenal, to what I consider to be world-class. I mean, GDP growth is averaging about 7%, between 5 and 7% in the last 4 years. Inflation is under 10%, and development can be seen all across the land. Of course, development isn't going to be overnight, but development has been initiated and is being pursued. And I think those 3 things are extremely important for a growing nation like Nigeria. And Goodluck Jonathan has done an excellent job of ensuring those things happen.
You talk about development, but is this development seen across Nigeria? Because millions of people are still poor. A lot of people are still living below $1 a day. So why should they vote for a president who has been there for 6 years and hasn't really changed the plight of many Nigerians?
Firstly, he hasn't been there for 6 years. He's been there for about 4 years and 9 months. But secondarily, the economy is not going to change overnight for everyone. It takes time. You know, it's like saying I meet a woman tomorrow, you meet a man or what have you, and you decide you want to have kids next week and grandkids the day after next week. It can't happen. It takes time. Goodluck Jonathan is putting structures in place that will ensure that Nigeria's economy keeps growing. If you look at the GDP percentage growth, it's beaten most BRIC countries. It's beaten Brazil, it's beaten Russia, it's beaten India, probably nearly every single year in the last 4 years. The only country it hasn't beaten yet is China. If those are considered some of the top growing economies in the world, and Goodluck Jonathan has beaten their GDP percentage growth, I don't know what kind of miracle we expect in Nigeria that will be better than that. So it takes time. Change is a process. Change is not an event. We're not going to, even if Goodluck Jonathan decides to create a quadrillion jobs tomorrow, it takes time for people to go to school, it takes time for people to acquire skills, and it takes time for those people to get deployed. So everything is a process, and he is doing a great job ensuring that the process takes place.
Yeah, I guess people just want to see that change on the micro level and not the macro level, because GDP is just figures. But on the micro level, it's the woman on the street who wants to see change in her life, who wants to be able to send her kids to school. But I understand what you're saying. Change cannot come overnight, and that is unarguable. But I'll ask you, Mr. Kayode, why should people vote for Buhari, and why are you campaigning for him?
Look, everyone knows I am very, very passionate about the situation in Nigeria as it relates to corruption. Look, well, let's be very frank, and I'm sure even supporters of Jonathan would agree with this. We are a nation that is bleeding. Our country is bleeding as a result of the mass looting that is going on. The fact that this country needs to be rescued, we need to stop the bleeding. And it's important that we have someone with a track record in terms of his passion on the anti-corruption campaign, that there's a need to actually put our nation back on track. And let us even look at the fact that when Buhari was head of state as military president, he was quite passionate about the country. He wrestled a major consensus from OPEC in 1984, increasing Nigeria's oil production by quite a number, I think from 1.3 million barrels to about 1.45 million barrels. He initiated programs to identify the fact that war against indiscipline, that is a major national malaise that is facing our country. As a person, and people who served in his government, you cannot label any act of corruption on them. And I could even mention as close to even quite a number of people who are military governors under his regime, who are from courts across all parts of the country. It was quite important for them that money spent will be well spent on the people of the country. And aside from that, we also know that, look, when Buhari was president of the country, he made sure that the healthcare system had adequate attention.
It was an illegal.
Mr. Dania, please let him finish speaking. Let him finish speaking.
I would have loved to engage you in a gutter fight, but this is not the platform for a gutter fight.
So let's stay on track, please. Can you finish what you were saying?
You know, so, and this is a man that, look, in terms of a foreign policy, as a Nigerian, during the government of Buhari, you feel national pride in which our foreign policy was kept at bay. Our position on the liberation struggle in Palestine and other parts of the world were quite clear. We sent a clear signal to the United Kingdom that we are an independent nation and will take the interests of our country quite seriously. Okay. So it's important that we let that part, and our nations need to be rescued.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this question because it's what a lot of people what is on a lot of people's minds. Yeah. When Buhari was president, he was president on a military platform, so it was a case of he's saying go and people go. But now this is going to be a democratic situation. It's not going. He's not going to have that power as he had as a military president. How is he going to stop corruption? How is he going to stop the looting? How is he going to bring this change that he's saying he's going to bring? If he still has to go through people and they still have to have that conversation, it's not just on him right now. He has to listen to people. So how there's a I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely, General Buhari is quite clear, and those of us supporting him we're quite clear that we Nigerians as a people, must clearly identify the fact that corruption is the key thing, is bleeding our nation, and it's about the future of our children. So anyone in the senators, national lawmakers must be ready to key into his ideology that, look, we must reduce the spendings on the one.
I think we lost Mr. Kayode there. Mr. Kayode, wait. Is he there?
I'm here. I'm with you.
Okay. Can you go on, please? We lost you for a minute there.
Yeah, so we must clearly key into it. He is not under any illusion that it's going to be easy. Those who support him, we're not under any illusion that it's going to be easy. But one thing that he's going to provide is leadership. And the followers will key into the philosophy of a leader. He's not the kind of leader that will say corruption is not stealing. He will identify with it, his lifestyle. The budget that will be coming out of his government will be quite clear, and people would have to buy into that philosophy. So it's not like it's a magic one that's going to change the country immediately, but it's a process that, of course, we're going to witness that change that Nigerians will be proud of.
Okay, Mr. Mukhtar, what is President Jonathan going to do differently if he's re-elected? What will he do differently to curb the corruption, the looting, and all the problems that Nigeria is facing?
First things first, before I answer that question, can I retort to some of the interesting statements my esteemed co-debater brought up? Is that possible?
Yes, I'll give you a minute to do that.
Okay, number one, Buhari's administration was not anti-corrupt in any way except victimizing people whom Buhari was not comfortable with. This is a statistical fact. You can go read up, do all the research you want. Number two, Buhari did not get any OPEC concessions. What Buhari was doing was counter trade, where he was trading barrels of crude oil with other countries, proceeds from which no one knows, no one has any accounting for. In other words, Buhari was engaged in economic sabotage against Nigeria, contrary to Nigeria's own foreign oil policy. Thirdly, Buhari did not have any sort of clear-cut foreign policy. The only thing Buhari was clear about was our stance on South Africa, which is we were anti-apartheid, and on the liberation of Palestine, which is wonderful. Beyond that, Nigeria was directionless.
It's quite interesting. If I might quickly point to Mr. Edi, that you would expect that if Buhari was this callous, corrupt, and whatever that is clearly mentioned here, that the duty and responsibility of a Jonathan administration in the last 6 years would have been to bring this man to justice. And we, those of us who support him, would clearly take up on this challenge. Buhari has said if you have any evidence of him taking 1 naira, just 1 naira, out of the public coffers, it is the responsibility of the government to bring him to justice. So in the past 16 years, I mean from 1999 till date, if no government in Nigeria, after Buhari, had been able to indict him for corruption, had been able to bring him up to trial, it's just mainly hearsay to just throw out these allegations that are unfounded. Point out to one indictment.
You know, this is my turn to speak, right?
So I'm asking you a question.
Gentlemen. Mr. Mukhtar, what do you have to say to that?
Buhari lost an election in 2011. Innocent people were killed. If Buhari is arrested, talk less of indicted, Nigeria will burn, because it's a known fact that Buhari has fanatical followers. So touching him is not a wise move politically.
But Mr. Dania, Mr. Dania, but I don't think Nigerians want to keep living in a country where people are above the law. So you're saying that if Buhari has done something wrong, he's not being charged or he's not being indicted simply because we're trying to keep Nigeria together?
We're talking of events of 1984 and 1985. Okay. For whatever reason, Nigeria has not yet matured to the point where we go after former military rulers. In other democracies that were formerly dictatorships, that has taken place. In some countries, 20 years. Some countries, it's 2 centuries.
Yes,
some countries, it's taking place right now. Nigeria hasn't reached that point yet. But the fact of the matter is, if we're going to look at Buhari's career as a military ruler, there are a lot of things he did which will earn him indictments at the International Criminal Court.
Let me quickly. You see, Toyosi, this is the kind of country we are dealing with. A man came out clearly asking you to arrest him if you have any indictment against him. A man clearly came out. You set up quite a number of committees. You cannot indict him. And you're saying an individual is greater than the state. That is not the kind of country we want. We want the kind of country where a Buhari himself, if he's found guilty of any offense, will be subjected to the laws of the land. That is what democracy is all about. And look,
sir,
let me
ask you
let me finish
just one question.
No, let me. I'll let you ask me a question. Let me finish my statement.
Okay,
it is quite important. It is quite important for our country that irrespective of who is the president of Nigeria, nobody should hold Nigeria to ransom.
Okay, that point is clear. That point is clear, Mr. Mukhtar.
Yes.
I'd like to ask now.
No, hold on. I have a question for Mr. Ogundamisi.
I'm asking the questions here. I am asking the questions here. I want to know what Jonathan plans to do differently.
Why does he have to do things differently?
If there's still corruption, if people are still poor, and he's saying he's coming back, what is he coming back to do differently?
I'm answering this question. Why does he have to do things differently?
Because there has been no change, perhaps.
Differently means you're doing something opposite. In my opinion, Goodluck Jonathan is taking Nigeria in the right direction. He's not perfect. Nigeria is not perfect either. However, Nigeria's problem, if you want to call it that, is institutionalized. We have challenges as a people starting at the grassroots and working their way up. Okay. We have to strengthen institutions. Goodluck Jonathan, as a matter of record, has done exactly that. He respects the rule of law. He respects the judiciary. He respects due process. With time, as long as he continues doing that, that same attitude will permeate into other strata of society, other levels of society. So doing something different indicates that he's been doing things wrong. Again, Nigeria is not perfect, but Goodluck Jonathan did not inherit Nigeria on October 1st, 1960. Goodluck Jonathan became president in 2010. Nigeria's problems preceded Goodluck Jonathan by a good, 50 years.
Okay, but people are asking questions like the missing $50 billion that was reported by the former central bank governor.
Completely untrue. No such money was missing. He reported it, but there is no evidence and there is no statistical way you can even say such a sum is missing. That kind of stuff not disappeared.
So the central bank governor of Nigeria just decided to say that? Is that what you're saying now?
The central bank governor of Nigeria knows he had a personal vendetta with the president, and he knows why he was handing about. Let me finish. 20 billion is what he said last. Before that, he said another amount, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Did money disappear? Probably. It's possible. Do I know who took the money? I have no clue. But 20 billion or a few $1 billion, no.
20 billion is not a few $1 billion, Mr.
20 billion is a lot of money.
Yes.
20 billion cannot disappear from any country's economic whatever. It's just not possible. It's like saying a house disappeared in the middle of the street. It's not possible. Wow. So what you said, there might be some merit.
If I might come in here respectfully.
Mr. Kayode, let him finish, please.
That there was some leakage, but the allegation that keeps on being repeated over and over and over again that 20 billion vanished is 100% not true.
Wow. Okay, Mr. Kayode, what do you have to say to that?
I just want to call on Mr. Ayede's conscience as a Nigerian that sometimes the loyalty to a principal or a loyalty to the president or a candidate should not take away the loyalty to our people, to the Nigerian people. It's important that we separate the loyalty to a candidate to the loyalty to the suffering mass of our people. That is very important. And why do I say that? When you ask him what would he like to see Jonathan do differently, he said, no, he's doing right. Let me say, hundreds of Nigerians, 17,000 families affected by Boko Haram killings would love to have heard him say he would do something differently. 280 girls gone missing, kidnapped by terrorists, the most monstrous terrorists in the world, according to the international community, who has committed heinous crime, would have loved him to say Jonathan would do something differently. Many Nigerians would have loved him to say that you would have a president who can justify that £6 billion spent on our national security would reflect on our military, our brave men and women who complain daily that they cannot even feed to provide for their family, who do not have adequate equipment to fight these terrorists, and we would have loved to hear him say he would do something differently. Let me also point out that people in Lagos, in Adamawa, in Osun, in Otueke would have loved to see that life means better in terms of those bogus GDP figures being thrown about will reflect in the lives of ordinary Nigerians, and it would do things differently. What I would fairly want to point out that it's important that at some point, even if we are supporting a candidate, that we recognize the fact that our country is at war. Right now, we have a chunk amount of our territory in control of mad men and women, Boko Haram, who have carved out an independent state out of Nigeria. Under this presidency, the Nigerian territorial map has changed dramatically. In Borno State, out of 27 or about local government, Boko Haram is under the control of about 20 local governments. In a number of states, Nigerians, more than 500,000 Nigerians are refugees in their homeland. 1.6 million Nigerians are refugees in Chad, in Niger. And you tell me you don't want this man to do anything differently.
Mr. Kayode, so you've thrown all these facts out now. Mr. Mukhtar, please. Mr. Kayode, you've thrown all these facts out now. Does Buhari have a fail-proof plan to combat Boko Haram?
Absolutely. And they are quite clear in the manifesto of the party. The first thing that the government recognizes is the fact that our country's military needs the support of the government. The corruption that goes on in the system whereby generals will sit in the air-conditioned office and rule over their budget and not get the necessary provisions meant for the men men and women in our armed forces in the battlefield would have to be looked into. The fact that generals who are stealing the money, who have alleged to have stolen the funds meant for our military, would now sit in judgment over them for protesting against the maltreatment of hundreds of our soldiers will be looked into. The fact that those 200 men charged, for so-called protesting against those generals will be looked into, and then we need to strengthen the economy by making sure we plug the loopholes in our economy so that we can support the different segments in our society. I agree with the idea on one thing, and that is the fact that institutions need to be strengthened. And Buhari has made it clear that, look, in our country, it's not that we don't have those institutions. Nigerians have a very clear policy in all segments. Go to the Ministry of Health, go to the Ministry of Defense. You have policies that are even written by brilliant Nigerians. So the problem is not that those policies are not in place. It's the fact that we have people who are not ready to implement those policies. And this is a government that's going to start implementing those policies and also provide backup in cases where those policies are flawed.
Okay, let's move on. Recently, Buhari's result was released by his secondary school, and a lot of people are saying someone with F in mathematics does not have the right to want to be president of a country like Nigeria. What do you have to say to that, Mr. Adi?
Can I, before I proceed, can this be a debate, or is this an APC, I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for.
Please find the word you're looking for.
He keeps on throwing out accusation upon allegation upon bombast that is completely and totally unrelated to reality.
What would you like to respond to? What would you like to respond to?
A few things. He is talking about the Nigerian military is not doing anything. The fact of the matter is,
I have not said that.
Our brave man,
Mr. Kayode, can you let him speak, please, so that it's clear that this is not an APC platform?
Thank you. I appreciate
Mr. Dania, please go ahead.
Brave men and women are daily paying the ultimate sacrifice for Nigeria in the Northeast. Every single day we have fatalities that are there because the commander-in-chief of the armed forces has taken a decision to make sure that Boko Haram is ended once and for all. Now, there are allegations and there are accusations that some general somewhere is stealing something. If such is happening, I am quite certain that such people would have been brought to justice, because if there is one area that the president has done extremely well in, it's in taking care of the armed forces. Number two, talking about GDP figures, actually, let me finish with the first one. 20 out of 27 local government areas in Borno State under the control of Boko Haram is a blatant lie. No such situation is happening. Boko Haram does have some territory it holds, but the territory it holds is up to 3 to 4% of the state. Why? Because when they take a place, the Nigerian military usually, if they don't fight them off in the first place, they usually chase them out immediately. So saying 20 of 27 local governments is completely and totally fictitious. The Chibok girls, that is a tragedy. And the president has been working assiduously from the time they got abducted to bring them back. Unfortunately, the dynamic is not one where you call Abubakar Shekau and say, hey, you need to bring those girls back. No, Abubakar Shekau is a mad person. He doesn't operate based on any sort of reasonable anything. So getting them out is a delicate procedure, and the president has been focused on that. Another thing he said is the military doesn't have adequate equipment. Fact of the matter is this administration has done more to arm the Nigerian armed forces than any administration since that of Alhaji Shehu Shagari, a man that Muhammadu Buhari decided to overthrow for reasons best known to him. Another thing he said is that the GDP being bandied about is fictitious. That is 100% not correct. The World Bank, the IMF, and other world bodies all agree that Nigeria is a growing economy.
Okay.
Also, lastly, just to what he said about Buhari strengthening institutions, the only institution Muhammadu Buhari strengthened when he was in charge of Nigeria was the secret police. That is a historical fact. Healthcare sector destroyed, educational sector destroyed, agricultural sector destroyed, manufacturing sector destroyed, trading sector, commercial sector destroyed. Only sector he strengthened was the Nigerian National Security Organization, the NSO. So expecting Buhari to come in now and strengthen institutions is like expecting a demolition man to build a house. It just can't happen.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the question. Should Buhari's school set results be an issue, Mr. AD?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. The fact of the matter is Buhari got into the army based on the false pretenses. Muhammadu Buhari finished at his institution in 1961 and got his result. When he got his result, he saw that he had failed. So instead of submitting his certificate, he had a letter come in from his principal saying, quote unquote, his results are being expected. At the same point in time, the late Shehu Musa Yaradua took the exam and passed his, he got credits and passes. He didn't fail math and some other subjects.
Okay.
He got admitted. So now, Shehu Musa Yaradua's certificate result came in. Buhari's result never came in. All Buhari had in his file is his results are being expected. Those results obviously never showed up, because if they had shown up, he would have been dismissed from the military. Getting an F9 in 1961, when Nigeria's educational sector was actually vibrant and worth something, would not have allowed him to enter the officer corps.
Okay.
So the fact that he has that F9, and he knew he had an F9, and he hid the fact that he had an F9 to get commissioned as an officer into the Nigerian army, that says a lot about the integrity and the character of Muhammadu Buhari.
Okay,
so what he says is not pleasant.
Okay, Mr. Kayode, what do you have to say to that?
I hate to say this. You see, ignorant is not an excuse to display this kind of stuff. I was born on the 12th of August, 1968. Let me repeat that, 1968. And I am old enough to know that the first time in Nigeria where you required English and maths as for pass as into admission into any institution was 2003. That was when that policy was implemented. So I wouldn't even dignify all those fallacious statements he's making, because he does not know. You don't need a pass in English and maths to get into any Nigerian university or institution in some courses before 2003. Let me put that aside. Let me touch about the military, because this is very, very close to my heart. My father served in the Nigerian army diligently. He fought in the Civil War, and I am a product of the military. I still have two close cousins who are fighting in northeast Nigeria, and this is very, very important topic, irrespective of our political party.
I need you to just try to round up, because now we have to.
Okay, let me just quickly say this, that irrespective of whatever candidate we support, it is important that we put Nigeria first. If my candidate, if Buhari becomes the president, I will hold him to the same standard I would have held any other Nigerians, including all past Nigerian government that has locked me up for holding my views. So it's not going to be different from Buhari, and I don't expect it to be different from Goodluck Jonathan, from his supporters.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one last question for both of you, and this is a simple yes or no question. Mr. Mukhtar, are you being compensated by Jonathan Goodluck in any way?
I have never asked.
Yes or no?
Nor have I ever received any sort of compensation.
Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi, are you being compensated?
I am so transparent that I have donated more than £10,000 to the Buhari campaign team, and I will continue to raise funds for this campaign. Okay. I am not a beneficiary financially.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And that's the end of the debate, guys. If you decide to follow up with Mr. Ogundamisi and Mr. Mukhtar, their respective handles are Mr. AD for Mukhtar, Dania, and at Ogundamisi for Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi. Following this debate, keep watching Sahara TV for more insight and analysis concerning Nigeria's 2015 general election. We have an excellent show lined up for you. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Josie.
Thank you.
Take care, man.
My guy, well done, eh? You've tried.